welcome to the microwave installation. The first thing we want to do with the microwave install is get all of our photographs. We want to get pictures of the floors, of the countertop, the space, and most importantly, we want a separate photo of this cooktop or of this range itself. That's one of the most important things. It's very easy for this to get damaged. So we need a good, clear photo before and after to make sure that we have it documented. The second thing we want to do is cut off the power. We need to go to the panel box and go cut off our power. Okay. Once we got the power off, now we can put all of our coverings down. We want to get all of our carpets down, which we got already laid out here, and we want to cover our stove. This step is very crucial in doing before we put this blanket on. The mistake people make is not cutting off this power, and what ends up happening is they turn on these burners while they're doing the install and burn the blanket to the stove, which in return we end up having to replace the customer's cooktop or range. So that's very important not to skip that step. So once we get it covered up, give us a nice amount of space. I have a moving blanket here. There's several different things you could use. The only thing you don't want to use is your carpet runner. You do not want to put that carpet runner up here, so get some kind of blanket, towel for your covering up top here. So, after we get everything covered, we want to do a pre-assessment. We want to check everything out, our space, make sure there's no damage, make sure we got an outlet, we got a receptacle up here. And the next thing we want to do is check out our new appliance. Check out and see if there's any existing damage on it, if there's any scratches. So we look good, we don't see any damage, now we can proceed forward. So we would uninstall our old one, which we have already taken down. After we get our other one installed, then we can start on the process of the new microwave. The first thing we want to look for is the carbon filter. The carbon filter is going to be up top in here, inside the top here. This is for front circulation. When it is set up for front circulation, it's going to blow out through the front here through this carbon filter. So part of the microwaves come with it in it, the other part come with it separate. If it comes separate, we're going to have to put it in. So if we have to put it in, it's going to insert right in the front here. So there's a couple screws that we're going to have to take out in order to get access to it. So they're right on the top here. Once we get our screws out, there's two different ways this is going to pop off. It's either going to slide left and pop off, or it's going to pop straight out. So this one doesn't slide left, so that tells me it's just going to pop straight out. So once we get it popped out, we have our filter in here. This one already came in it, but if it came separate, it's just going to insert in the middle here. They come in different sizes, but they all insert in the middle. You'll be able to see the little slots on the sides of how it's going to sit in there. This one inserts in and sits straight up. Others, when they go in there, they sit in on an angle. Either way, it's going to slide and sit right in there. Once we get our filter in there, we can put our cover back on. We want to make sure that we get our bottom clips in, then we can slide our top in. It's going to go back in the same way that it came out. So we get our bottom clips in. Get our bottom clips, we got our top clips, and then we can put our screws back in. Sometimes we may have to put it in, sometimes we're not going to have to. It just depends on the model of the microwave. So that's the first thing we're looking for. The second thing that we're looking for is the fan here. The fan, depending on the location of our ductwork, the ductwork can either be going up through the cabinet, it can be going through the back of the wall, or it could be set for front circulation. No matter how it's set, we have to point the ductwork or point the fan to where the ductwork is. So, to remove our fan, there's going to be a couple screws on top that we'll need to take out. Then there's also going to be a couple in the back securing the fan into the microwave. So once we unsecure it, we'll be able to pop it out. Now this model, the top cover is separate. It's just going to slide out and pop out. Other models, some models, it's attached to the microwave or it just flips up. Either way, it's going to come off the same way. Now the fan, depending where our ductwork is, we're going to have to remove it and point it to where the ductwork is. So this model, the cord is pre-attached. In other models, it comes with a little plastic clip where it's going to be clipped in. You can unclip it, remove it to be able to spin it to where you need it. This one comes pre-attached, so we would just have to remove the cord to get it where we need it placed. So if we were going up, we need to point it up. If it was going through the back wall, it would be going out the back. Now depending on the fan, if it's going out the back or the top, some of them have a little punch out like seen here in the back. So if we were pointing out the back on this one, we would have to take these little cutouts out. The easiest way to do that is take a pair of needle nose pliers, put in the middle, twist it, and go around it, and then we would be able to remove it. Once we get it popped out, we would be good to secure it in and put the top back on. This one is front circulated, so we don't have any ductwork, so it's just going to be pointed forward. So I'm just going to slide these wires back in. Slide the fan back in, then we can secure it back in place. So we got our couple screws that are going into the motor, because the motor is always secured to the fan. Now depending on the model of the microwave, some of these screws are recessed in the microwave in a little slot. Now once we get this all secured, we'll be ready to move on. Now since we didn't have any ductwork, we don't have an attachment here. But if the ductwork is going up to the top or through the back, there's a attachment that's going to go on the top. So on this model, there's little grooves here where it would slide into it and sit on top. Other models, it's just going to sit on the top and you're going to screw it in. It's just a rectangular duct flap that's going to sit on there. So when the fan turns on, it's going to blow it up, and when it stops, it's going to go back down. It prevents a draft from coming back down through the ductwork. So in this case, we don't have one, so we're not going to need to secure it on. So the second we got the fan finished up. Now, the third and final thing that we got to do is measure our holes. So, we need to measure our bolt holes on the top here, and we need to measure our cord. Depending on the cord slot, depending on your cabinet style, if there's a little gap up here in the cabinet, the hole's not going to matter where the cord hole is. But if there's not this little gap, it's just this flat cabinet floor, that hole's gonna have to be exact on, or it's gonna push up and get in the way of the microwave. So, to measure our holes, I'm gonna measure over from the side, which we have 1 5/8 inch. And we're gonna measure from the back, which I got 9 7/8 inch. Do the same thing on the other side. I got 1 5/8 by 9 7/8. So this specific model, the bolt holes are the same on each side. Some models are different. They could be one on each side. Some are in a little farther. Every model is a little bit different. This one has 2 bolts. Some models have 3 bolt holes. So it really just depends on the model itself. So we got our measurements for our holes. Now we want to measure our cord. So our cord going in from the side, we got 8.5 by 4.5. So now we got our measurements. I'm going to want to mark them up on here. Before I mark them, we're going to put our bracket up. We're going to need to put our bracket up to help with our side measurements. So, we got our mounting bracket. Now to put our mounting bracket on, what we want to do is measure the depth down from the top of the countertop. So, the easiest way to do that is we're going to put our bracket on the microwave. Put our bracket on the microwave, then we're going to measure the height of it. We're going to measure from the bottom up to the top of the microwave, which our measurement is 16.5 inches. So, we got 16.5 inches. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to measure down from the lowest point of the cabinet, because the microwave is going to sit on the lowest part of it. So, we're going to want to measure down and mark on each side. So, we'll mark 16.5. Go to the other side. I'm going to mark 16.5 inches. That's going to let us know where we need to set this bracket. So, depending on where your studs line up, we may be able to screw into the stud, or we may have to use a toggle bolt. If we have to use a toggle bolt, we would have to mark our holes. So we want to hold it up, line it up on our line, and we want to make it nice and centered. We want to make sure it's nice and centered on each side and sitting on our 16.5 inch marks we got. So if we had to use our toggle bolts, we would just mark our hole on each side where we would need to drill. Now if we were drilling, we would use a 1/2 inch drill bit to drill this hole. Once we got our hole drilled, we can put our toggle bolt on our bracket, and we would just pinch it and insert it into the wall. And then we would be able to tighten it up. In this case, we have studs that we can mount into, so we can just use screws mounting it in. You can either use a stud finder, or with the existing microwave where the bracket was, you can see where the studs are or the previous holes in there. Whatever is easiest for you to be able to tell. So, We're going to want to mount our bracket up there. We got it on our 16.5-inch line on each side. Want to make sure we get it right on that line, because that's going to allow the microwave to sit nice and flush. Nice and flush on the top of the cabinet. Alright, we got one side in. We got the other side in. I'm going to put one more bolt in the middle. Just to give it a little extra support. You want to make sure that it's on there tight and it's not moving. The middle's flexing a little bit, so I'm just going to add another one in the middle for a little bit of support. As long as it's not moving, it should be good. Alright, we got an extra bolt in there for a little extra support. Now that we got our bracket mounted on, now we can finish marking our marks for our bolt holes. So we had 1 5/8 by 9 7/8 for our side measurements, and we had 8.5 by 4.5 for our hole. Now, when marking these measurements, it's important that we have this bracket up here first. Is when the microwave's sitting in here, it's going to sit flush with the bracket. It makes it a lot easier. One, we center this, it looks better centered. Two, it's going to help with our measurement, getting the measurement the same on each side. So, if the microwave is going to sit flush to the edge of this bracket, we're going to be measuring from the sides of the cabinets and from the back wall. We're measuring from this because it's the same equal distance that we can measure from. So, with that being said, the microwave's going to sit flush with the edge of the bracket, not against the wall. So, that's going to tell us that we're going to have to add this little gap between the bracket and the wall in order to get our holes to line up. Because the microwave's not sitting on the edge of the cabinet, it's sitting with the edge of the bracket. So, in order to do that, I would have to measure the distance on each side, which I got 5/8 inch there, and if I centered it good, it should be the same on the other side, which is 5/8 inch. So, that gap is 5/8 inch, so that tells me I'm going to have to add the 5/8 to my original 1 5/8 measurement. So, if we add 1 5/8 to 5/8, that gives us 2 1/4. So that 2 1/4 is going to be our new side measurement. Now our back measurement, the microwave's sitting back against the wall, so we're not going to need to add any extra distance. This style bracket, the microwave's sitting against the wall, but there is another style that doesn't sit against the wall. The brackets sit out about 1/2 inch farther, which is going to cause the microwave to sit on the end of the bracket 1/2 inch away from the wall. So if it was that style bracket, we would have to add an extra 1/2 inch to our measurement. But in this case, this bracket, it allows the microwave to sit flush against the wall, so we're measuring against the wall, so we're not going to need any extra distance. So, we're going to measure and mark for our holes. We're going to want to mark it in a little plus or a little X. So if I measure it over from the cabinet, I got 2 1/4 inch, which is our new measurement because we added the 5/8 from the gap in the bracket. So I want to go over and mark 2 1/4. Then I'm going to measure back. Our measurement was 9 7/8. So now I just want to double check my measurement. And make sure I got it right. Which that looks good. Now we can measure our other side. We got 2 1/4 by 9 7/8. Nine 7/8. So now I want to double check my measurements. 9 7/8 by 2 1/4. So we look good to go. Now we just have our cord hole. So our cord hole was 8 1/2 inches from the side. So we're going to have to add our 5/8 inch to that measurement, which would give us 9 1/8. So we want to measure over 9 1/8. And then our back measurement from the wall was 4 1/2. So I got 4 1/2. By 9 1/8. Double check my measurements. We look good. So now we got our holes marked. Now we just got to drill. So we're going to grab our bits and drill. So our normal bolt holes, we're going to use a 1/2 inch drill bit. Got a 1/2 inch. So we got our sides drilled. Now we have our cord hole. So our cord hole, we're going to use an 1.5 inch bit. Could probably use an 1 1/4 as well, but 1 1/4 is about the smallest we want to go. Anything less than that, the cord's not going to fit. So 1.5 inch, 1 1/4, both will work fine. Alright, now we got our hole drilled. So, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to vacuum up, clean up my area up top here to get all the wood pieces out. It's very important to do. If you don't, they're going to fall down in the slots where your screws go and how they're made. It's going to damage the bolt or damage this inside the microwave, and you're not going to end up being able to screw the bolt in. So the easiest thing to do is just vacuum the top and avoid that scenario. Alright, so we got our vacuum with a little brush attachment. We're just going to back out the top real quick. up a little bit of this where I'm going to set my microwave. Now, I'm going to want to get everything set in place, all my bolts, my microwave, so I'm good to just set it up there. Alright, so we got our bolts ready, we got our drill ready, and we got our screwdriver ready. So we're good to go. Now, putting this microwave up here, we want to be careful not to damage the wall or the cabinet at all. This can be kind of tricky if you've never done it before. So what I'm going to do is I got to lift this up. I'm kind of angling it down forward towards me. I'm sliding back into the slot and finding the wall. Once I find the wall, I'm going to come out just a little bit, go straight down so I can sit right on these clips for the bracket. Now, you're going to have to be able to hold it up in the air in that slot. If you miss the brackets or you don't hit the bracket, the one thing you don't want to do is lean forward, put your weight on it, and drag down the wall. If you do that, you're going to damage and tear up the wall, and then we're going to have to pay to replace that for the people. So we have to be able to hold it in place in there, find the wall. Once we find the wall, we're going to bring it out just a hair, and then we're going to slowly go down till we hit the bracket. Once we get on the bracket, we want to look underneath and check it, make sure that we're on the bracket before we tilt it up. If you tilt that up and you're not on the bracket, that microwave's going to fall down. So we want to make sure that we're on the bracket before we tilt it forward. So, you can lift this from the sides, you can lift it from underneath. Some people have one underneath, one on top. You know, whatever's comfortable for you works the best for you. I normally grab it from the sides, so that's the way I'm going to show you. So the first thing I want to do is slide my cord up through this slot. Once I get my cord up, I can just close this door on the cord just to hold it so when I put it up, it's not falling back down. So I'm going to tilt this forward towards me and go in and find the wall. Once I do, then I can go down. So I find the wall. Come out, go down till I hit the clips. I'm going to look underneath, double check, make sure I'm on that bracket. Because sometimes you could be sitting on the top of the bracket and not the clips themselves. So I'm going to pull this cord through, and then we can get ready to put it in. Now, we got our bolt and we got our washer. We're going to feed down through and find the hole. If we get one secured in, it's going to make it a lot easier than trying to do both of them. So the bolt's long, so we can start with using the screwdriver or with the drill, but we do not want to use the entire thing with the drill. The final part of tightening it, we need to use a screwdriver. Because if we don't, we are going to damage that clip. If it gets caught at all, it's not spinning. This has to freely spin inside here. If it's not freely spinning and we force it in, it's going to push on that clip in the microwave and break it off in there. Same thing if we over tighten it with the drill, it's going to break that clip off. Once we break that clip off, we're no longer going to be able to mount the microwave, and we're going to have to pay to replace this microwave. So it's very, very crucial that you do not overdrive it with the drill. You can use the screwdriver the entire time, or you can use the drill for part of the way. But the final portion you put in has to be hand screwed in. See, I went nice and slow with the drill. That way I can tell how far it went down. Now I can finish hand screwing it in the rest of the way. So the easiest way to do this is hold up on the bottom, push it up to the top of the cabinet, and then screw it in. Doing it this way, you know, once it's tight, it's going to sit flush up against the cabinet. If you don't do that, if you don't push up on the bottom, you know, there's a chance you may not tighten it all the way. Because the weight of the microwave here is going to make it feel like the bolt's tight when it's actually not tight all the way. So holding it up flush with the countertop is the easiest way to make sure it's tightened all the way. So we got that side tight, now we want to tighten the other side. So once I get it tight, to check, make sure it's tight all the way, we can lift up on the bottom. It's solid, it's not moving. If it's not tight all the way, the microwave's going to bounce up and down, which we don't want. We want to make sure that this is nice and tight up with it. It should sit flush up against the top of this countertop if it's tight all the way. And it's always a good idea to double check it as well. Make sure it's tightened all the way. Once we get our screws secured, then we gotta plug it in. Once we get it plugged in, we have our plate we need to put in, and we have some grease filters on the bottom that go in. Grease filters are just going to slide in on the bottom. The plate, when we're putting it on the inside, some models have plastic on the inside here. We want to make sure we get all that out, and the manufacturer registration is going to be in here as well. We need to make sure we take that registration out and put it with the rest of the paperwork to give the customer. All paperwork that comes with it always stays with the customer. Now we got our plate in. We want to get all our plastic off the outside. Generally, I leave taking my plastic off to the very end. That'll eliminate from getting fingerprints all over the microwave. So whatever fingerprints we have on there, we want to wipe down when we're done. You know, we want this to look nice and perfect when we're done with it to show the customer. So, once we get that on there, we can get our power back on. We got our power onto the microwave. We have to set the time on it, which is 11:35. Hit clock again, the time is set. We want to make sure our light works. Make sure our fan's working, which both are working. Now that both are working, it's tested. Final step is we got to pick everything up, clean everything up. Once we do, we can get our final inspection photos and then discuss with the customer and explain the survey to them.